Just days away from Christmas, Nigerians are in mourning following a deadly attack in Gombe State. How Ugandan doctors are making a difference among victims of Sudan's civil war. And one of reality TV's most famous couples calls it quits. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Just 2 days before Christmas, and residents of Gombe State in Nigeria's northeast are in mourning following a deadly attack which has left 19 people dead. The blast occurred at a bus station that was filled with passengers commuting to various parts of northern Nigeria for the Christmas holidays. We get more in this report from Channels TV in Nigeria.
Gombe State may not be among the northeast states under the state of emergency, but it sure has gotten an unfair share of attacks by the militant group Boko Haram.
There was a blast early this morning at Duku Motor Park. When the blast occurred, the police cordoned off the area, offered aid to victims, and took the injured after aid to the hospitals. And the dead were also evacuated to the hospital. As I talk to you, the people are going about their normal business without any hindrance.
The first time Gombe State was attacked was in January 2012 when a church was hit by the group. 6 worshippers were killed and 10 others wounded. On December the 4th this year, another tragic event occurred, this time in Bajoga town in Gombe State. Gunmen arrived there in 6 Hilux vans in the early hours of the morning, shooting sporadically, and scores of people were killed. Despite the attacks, the Chief of Defense Staff, Air Chief Marshal Alex Bade, told journalists in Abuja that the war against terror is being won.
This is the time for affirmative action.
Gombe may be a new target by the Boko Haram group, but constant attacks have been on in major cities and council areas in Borno and other major towns in the northeast, and life has now become unbearable for the people.
The number of internally displaced people in Borno is about the highest in Africa. We have up to 2 to 2.5 million of our people displaced. Some are in Niger Republic, some are refugees in Cameroon, and a lot of them are dispersed across the nooks and crannies of this country.
This year alone, over 3,000 people have died in the war against insurgents, with the military making clear promises of winning the war.
Well, 5 bombs have exploded in Yemen's capital, killing at least 1 person and wounding 1 other. The blast happened early Tuesday in the old quarter of Sana'a, an area occupied by many members of the Shia Muslim Houthi group. One of the explosions detonated as a Houthi militiaman tried to disarm it. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attacks. The Houthis have clashed with fighters from Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and other allied Sunni tribesmen since overrunning Sana'a in September. Well, 6 months ago, Bentiu was a ghost town, the capital of Northern Unity State near South Sudan's important oil fields had changed hands several times in the fighting between government forces and rebels. Calm returned in November, and since then, residents of Bentiu have been trying to regain some sense of normalcy. Bentiu's market has reopened, and there are plans now to reopen schools too. But as Bino Moshla reports, fears of new attacks are prevalent.
The small propeller-driven airplane of the World Food Programme leaves Juba, the capital of South Sudan, for the north. The rich and fertile country below could easily sustain itself, but a year ago, when fighting broke out, all development in the then 2-year-old country stopped. Bentiu has suffered greatly. The town is strategically located near some of South Sudan's important oil fields. Often a front line in the battle between the forces of President Salva Kiir and fighters loyal to his former deputy Riek Machar, there is some recent calm. So life is tentatively returning, with some residents moving back and plans to reopen a school for 150 children. Zakaria Bottuor is the director for general education in Unity State.
So we started to open this school so that to show that the peace has come And also the civil also has come to the town.
A lot of work needs to be done before the opening. Tables and chairs are missing. The walls are tacked with messages from the most recent occupation. And there's no guarantee that the calm will last. Peace talks are entering a second year without progress save multiple failed ceasefires. The regional government here gave VOA permission to film, but the streets are dominated by edgy soldiers who don't like the camera. While Yak Gatkwat is the acting governor of Unity State, he says he's expecting a new attack any minute.
And the last fighting in Bentiu town was on the 29th of October this year. And up to this time, after that attacks of Bentiu town and Rukona, there's no more fighting anymore. And our forces are still remained on the areas where they are. And the forces, of course, forces of Rebel are still around in the area, of course, where they used to hold.
The conflict in South Sudan has killed thousands and displaced several million. The World Food Programme is warning that 2.5 million people will face acute hunger next year. Meanwhile, people here try to get back to daily life, but planning for the future is as uncertain as the future of South Sudan itself. Benno Müchler, VOA News, Bentiu, South Sudan.
11 people were injured when a man drove his car into crowds of pedestrians Sunday night in the French city of Dijon, shouting "God is great" in Arabic. It's the latest in a series of apparent lone wolf terror attacks in the West. Henry Ridgwell looks at the growing threat of attacks, which security experts say are likely inspired by the so-called Islamic State terror group.
Say the attacker in Dijon shouted Allah Akbar before ploughing his car into several groups of pedestrians. Witnesses say he invoked the children of Palestine to explain his actions. France's Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve visited the injured in hospital.
Chacun sait en France que la menace est réelle. Il faut l'anticiper.
Everyone in France knows the threat is real. It needs to be anticipated to be countered, and that is what the police and intelligence services are doing every day.
Solennellement l'engagement sans faille.
The attack happened just hours after a man stabbed and wounded 3 officers inside a police station Saturday in central France. He also shouted, "God is great." Jean-Luc Bec is the public prosecutor in Jules-les-Tours, where the attack happened.
An individual who attacks a police station, who doesn't attack Mr. X or Y, who clearly attacks the police while shouting Allahu Akbar, it gives rise to the question about if he was acting alone or on orders.
That is resonating across the Western world. Last week, 3 people were killed in Sydney, Australia, including the gunman, when Iranian-born man Haron Monis took several people hostage in a cafe. He was shot dead when police stormed the building. The self-styled sheikh had demanded an Islamic State flag during the siege, despite apparently having no traceable links to the terror group. The spectre of lone terrorists drawing inspiration from Islamic State is a growing threat, says Sajjan Gohel of the Asia Pacific Foundation.
Self-starters who have not traveled abroad but nevertheless are galvanized by the ISIS narrative and its ideology. People that may not be part of the ISIS machinery but are certainly adopting its ideology.
Intelligence services are also battling to contain the threat posed by their own nationals who travel to fight with the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Again, security analyst Sajjan Gohel.
Individuals from the West who've gone to Iraq and Syria, linked up with ISIS, taken part in battles and attacks, and then with the intention of coming home potentially to carry out terrorist attacks.
The EU says more than 3,000 Europeans have travelled to the region. They're often not on the radar of security services, says French terror expert Jean-Charles Brissard.
We don't have any pattern or profile with these jihadists. And this is why it's difficult to identify them, to prevent them from travelling there. They're coming from all social classes.
Intelligence reports suggest many foreign fighters are disenchanted and want to return home, but are being forced to stay. Activists claimed recently that 100 foreigners had been executed for trying to flee the group. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Well, Tunisia has elected veteran politician Beji Caid Essebsi in its first free presidential election since independence from France in 1956. The 88-year-old former minister will replace incumbent Moncef Marzouki after winning 56% of the vote. Mr. Marzouki had served as interim president since the so-called Arab Spring Revolution began in 2011. Mr. Essebsi was widely seen as the favorite after last month's first round of voting. 60% of Tunisians voted turned out for Sunday's election. While Liberia's Elections Commission is expected to soon begin releasing the results of Saturday's special senatorial election. Unofficial results released by news organizations showed that incumbents were struggling at the polls. Rodney Sear, publisher and managing editor of Front Page Africa, says opposition parties could win as many as 7 or 8 new seats in the Senate. Football legend George Apong Weah may be among the opposition candidates to win a seat. Weah, founder of the Congress for Democratic Change and two-time presidential candidate, was leading by a wide margin over his nearest rival, Robert Sirleaf, the son of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, in a very crowded Montserrado County race. Well, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio is urging that protests over the killings of unarmed African Americans by police be suspended while the city mourns the New York officers recently shot dead by a gunman. VOA's Caroline Weaver has more.
Flowers, candles, and tributes continue to grow at the Brooklyn street corner where the 2 officers were fatally shot Saturday as they sat in their patrol car. Officers Wenjin Liu and Rafael Ramos died after Ismail Brinsley opened fire through a car window. Brinsley, who had a history of violence and mental illness, then killed himself as police pursued him into a subway station. He had announced his plan to murder police earlier on social media to avenge the recent deaths of 2 unarmed black men at the hands of police. Speaking to a police youth group Monday, Mayor Bill de Blasio said recent protests sparked by the deaths, including Eric Garner's chokehold death in New York, should be put on hold for the time being.
I think it's a time for everyone to put aside political debates, put aside protests, put aside all of the things that we will talk about in due time. But in the coming days, 2 families prepare for funerals. 2 families try to think about how to piece their lives back together. That should be our only concern.
The mayor and New York Police Commissioner William Bratton visited the families of the 2 dead men Monday. Bratton earlier said the killings were a direct spin-off from the protests, while a police union chief, Patrick Lynch, cast blame on the mayor for being sympathetic to the protesters' cause.
There's blood on many hands tonight. Those that incited violence on the street under the guise of protest, that blood on the hands starts on the steps of City Hall in the office of the mayor.
Anti-police brutality activists who also came to lay a wreath where the officers had fallen said they were just as outraged by the police deaths. Kirsten John Foy.
And we're going to stand with our police department, those that will stand with us. We're going to stand with this family. We're going to do everything we can to bring healing to this city in this time.
Funerals are being planned for the 2 dead men as family members of Officer Liu arranged to travel from China. Carolyn Weaver, VOA News, New York.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, Ugandan doctors aid victims of Sudan's civil war. Stay with us.
Wherever you are, Voice of America is on air, reaching more than 130 million weekly, worldwide, in more than 40 languages. Online, social media, and breaking news from around the world. On the go, dozens of new features on popular platforms with new apps and trending topics. Voice of America, on air, online, on the go.
Welcome back. The death toll from the Ebola outbreak has risen to more than 7,500 people, and the number of cases is nearing 20,000, according to the World Health Organization. Well, the latest data reflects recent trends, with Liberia and Guinea seeing a decrease in the rate of Ebola transmissions, while Sierra Leone's cases continue to rise. Those three West African countries account for almost all the Ebola deaths. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says the international community needs to learn the lessons from this outbreak and better prepare for the next global outbreak of disease. Recently returned from visiting the West African countries hit hardest by the Ebola crisis. The Secretary General said his presence at the United Nations should send an important message that people without signs of Ebola infection should not be shunned. Well, in the Sudanese state of South Kordofan, the number of amputees as a result of civil war is in the thousands, but few have access to sufficient medical help. Adam Bales recently visited the area and says a small team of Ugandan doctors has been providing remote help, producing new prosthetic limbs for those in need.
In Sudan's Nuba Mountains, civilians are trapped in the middle of a conflict. Government forces have staged thousands of aerial attacks since 2011. Mother of Mercy Hospital is the only fully functional medical facility in the Nuba Mountains. Wards are overcrowded. Beds line corridors, transforming them into makeshift wards. 9-year-old Robe Mohammed was injured in an aerial attack and lost his right leg. But today he is able to walk again. Just this morning he was given a new prosthetic leg, part of a programme run by a team of Ugandan doctors. Rave has already made drastic improvements, walking without the aid of a crutch for the first time in almost a year. Prosthetic technician Simon Peter says Rave's parents were away when the bomb fell on his house.
So when the bomb, these people released the bomb, they got him inside the house and he cut off the right leg.
Peter says most victims in the Nuba Mountains are middle-aged men.
35 to 40. And these are active people. I think they meet problems as they go to look for food for their families. Sometimes, you know, as a man, and most of them are men, they try to defend their families. As in a process of defending a family, they meet sometimes maybe gunshots or landmines or whatever.
When Rabe was injured, it took his parents hours to reach the hospital. Many people have to travel as far as 200 kilometres to receive treatment. This can take days and mean the difference between life and death. The project works to get help to those in the most remote areas. With no facilities to produce prosthetic limbs inside the region, doctors take a cast and limbs are produced outside the country. These are some of the limbs they have brought to fit patients who were measured last year. An estimated 50,000 people are disabled as a result of the conflict in Sudan. South Kordofan's Deputy Governor, Suleiman Jaban, says most of them were hurt in bombings.
Daily basis. Yeah, daily basis. If they're not bombing here, they're bombing in other areas. And we get the report. The Lami Mazalan is continuously bombing now. All these days bombing. Killing civilian, injured civilian, and burning their houses and burning their crops.
In South Kordofan, hundreds of children like Rabe are under constant threat from attacks. Hiding in caves with their families, many children have spent their whole lives living in war. For now, Rabe is going back to his village, far from the hospital, one of many to face a difficult future. Adam Bales for VOA News, Gidel, Sudan.
Well, this summer, 500 fellows from President Barack Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative visited the United States to study in management, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Eda Zacharias Mikuria from Ethiopia interned with the Boeing Corporation and was excited to bring our experience back to our home country and our position at the United Nations Development Program in Addis Ababa.
My name's Eda Zacharias.
in Virginia when I was in the academic course, and then coming to Boeing and see them at play, those have been, they've just tied in the knots together, and I can't really put in words how much learning I have had during these this summer.
The negotiator's task, if they have a weak bat, is to try to hide.
And it also has helped us in terms of reaching out to other African youth across the continent. So now you're no longer operating alone, but you're looking at, they have done this somewhere in the Central African Republic, or they're trying to do this somewhere in Tanzania. So how do I connect those dots and reach out to other fellows and get their advice and also share some of what I have? Because I believe in Africa we all share in the same kind of issues, and it's important to bring out similar solutions. And if we have things that have worked, it's important to share. And also connecting it to our state here in the U.S. So it's a broader global network, continental and global network.
It's really been a privilege to have Ida here with us on this program. She's done a fine job. She's a really bright, smart, enthusiastic young person, and is really going to be a leader in doing what she does. She brings a couple of really great perspectives into the mix. One, obviously, you know, she's from Ethiopia. She's from Africa. She sees things with African eyes, which are useful to us because that is a great and growing market for us to understand how people in that region kind of see what we do and what they do and how they work together. And secondly, the fact that she is, you know, a young person on the front end of what's going to be a really terrific career is really great too, because she also brings that perspective of what people in her generation are looking in the world of business and international relations.
So part of this involved doing a write-up, so that helped me understand how to craft messaging. So with the feedback I got, how I can reach out to the audience and targeting audience and writing up a story which involves what I do back at home at the UNDP, which is writing stories that have impact on the readers and also communicate the impact that has been put on the local residents that we try to reach out to. And apples too, we have apples. I always reiterate this message of things take time. Let's not give up, and that's something that I've learned a lot here in the U.S. When I ask a question, even if it's not a very thought out question, the first answer that comes from the person responding to me is, that is a great question. And I feel that helps me be encouraged to ask more and probe more into my mind. So just keep a positive mindset. And let's not just stick onto the negative. Whenever we are going to criticize something, let's present a solution for it, and that's what I have learned. Mandela Washington Fellowship is a great window for that. It's good that it's not just limited to the 500. The networks are open to anyone who wants to join. So this is something that Ethiopia, you all have to apply for and come back home, and let's continue the work that has been started.
Great. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. One of reality television's most famous couples finalized their divorce. We'll be right back.
Dans laquelle les Tunisiennes et les Tunisiens ont démontré, malgré des circonstances parfois,
probable or confirmed Ebola in the three most affected countries, and 7,518 deaths.
Several boxes and drugs there.
Welcome back to Africa 54. It's over. Now, Kardashian momager Kris Jenner and Olympic gold medalist Bruce Jenner's divorce papers have been signed by a judge. According to the documents, Chris will have to pay Bruce $2.5 million as an equalization payment. Chris keeps the family home, her 2012 Rolls-Royce Ghost, her 2014 Bentley, and her 2014 Land Rover. Now, Bruce will keep his 2011 Porsche 97 Coupe, his 2013 Cadillac Escalade, and his 2007 Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Both parents will share joint and legal physical custody of their youngest daughter, Kylie, but neither will have to pay child support. Well, next up, the drummers and dancers are already rehearsing at Rio de Janeiro's Sambadrome. The Samba Parade is the highlight of the Rio de Janeiro's Carnival. It takes place in the specially built arena called the Sambadrome. The parade is a fierce, hip-shaking, sequence-started competition between the Samba schools for the yearly title. Samba schools are associations or social clubs representing neighborhoods of Rio de Janeiro. The rehearsal is also a good opportunity for people who cannot afford the expensive tickets to the Sambadrome to support their community and neighborhood and have a little taste of the parade. Now, the 2015 Carnival of Rio de Janeiro starts on February 13th and runs through February the 17th. And finally, 2014 will be remembered as the year robots got a lot more sociable. Now, Honda's world-famous Asimo is the ultimate party animal. It can run, hop on one foot, dance, and now bartend. The latest version can open a bottle, pour a drink, and carry goods. Meanwhile, the U.S. military-produced Cheetah robot. It is the first battery-powered Cheetah robot that can run up 10 miles per hour for at least 15 minutes and jump over a 16-inch obstacle. Then there is Jibao, which was promoted as the first family-friendly robot. It can tell stories to children, remind their busy parents of upcoming appointments, and take pictures during family events. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Happy holidays
from VOA.
VOA의 পক্ষ থেকে শুভ নববর্ষ।
Happy holidays from VOA.
Chúc Tết năm mới thì VOA.
Happy holidays from VOA.
VOA की जानिब से नया साल मुबारक।
Happy holidays from all of us here at VOA.